I am so excited to speak with you, Tim.
Oh, bless you. I'm very excited to speak to you.
I am such an admirer of your television directorial work, and have been.
Stop it, Debbie. Come on. Thank you.
And have been.
Thank you very much.
And now to see what you've done with Last Looks, this is so much fun. You've got a real old-fashioned gumshoe quality to it. Mel Gibson is hilarious. I mean, beyond hilarious, with this ridiculous acerbic wit and pomposity to him. The whole thing is just, it is fun. That is the word for this film. It is fun. And what you do so often when you've got a mashup like this, where you've got a noirish sensibility and then you've got comedic notes, they go the more upstanding and even-toned, like a Nick and Nora Charles Thin Man kind of thing. But here, and plays with shades of gray, visually and emotionally. Here, what I love that you and your DP, what Lyle and you do, you keep the visual tonal bandwidth and the emotional bandwidth light. You light this, it's brightly lit, you don't go into negative space, you keep the colors a little bit saturated. So the whole film just speaks fun and upbeat lightness, that everybody is having fun. This may be a murder mystery with a bunch of other mysteries underneath it, but it's so light and so charming, which is a great compliment on Lyle's work, having seen what he did with Bad Education and with Kate, which is super saturated, but really leans into the darkness.
Yeah, you're right. Well, it's lovely. All what you said, it's really nice to hear that, and thank you for saying that. And it's exciting that someone gets it, because a lot of effort, a lot of discussions and many viewings of stuff and talking gets you to the point of, day one on the set. And it's so important for me to find your warriors when you do a production, like-minded people who are on the same frequency, who trust and understand and listen and take an idea and push it somewhere visually interesting or not, and those choices, whether to go handheld or whether to put it on the sticks or do it in a one-er, shoot anamorphic, shoot not, all those, the only reason I'm here doing what I do is through instinct, and I rely on my instincts, and it's done me well, and this is a film which was really quite tricky to sort of get those flavors and get those tones right, especially when you're making a film about Los Angeles, and we shot the film in Atlanta, so it was sort of trying to emulate and trying to find locations that were sort of similar, and if we couldn't find them, then I just try something completely different. I don't know whether you noticed, but the interior of the police station looks more like New York, and then the exterior looks like some sort of brutalist building. But it kind of works because, when there's sort of smoke and mirrors of storytelling, the audience aren't looking at that point. They're just with Waldo, enjoying the ride. And I tried to sort of, when we had a dramatic scene, try and undercut it with some humour at the end of it, and just sort of cast actors who would bring some life into the part. Like, I think that the part of Don Q was written quite seriously, and this young, brilliant actor called Jacob Scipio walked in and did something that no one else was doing, and I loved it. And all of a sudden, he owned that character, and and he was great, and all of a sudden you're right. Then it becomes fun in a sort of true romance kind of vibe where you just don't know what's going to happen next and who he's going to meet, and I'm glad you responded to the way you did. And just the thing about Mel with the Alistair Pinch, we spoke about the Royal Shakespeare Company actor version of Alistair Pinch, which is the sort of the kind of Oliver Reed through it all, Richard Burton, and if you see Oliver Reed interviewed or off screen, he's completely on a different frequency.
Yes.
And so we thought, well, yes, let's go for it, because if you don't do that, then there's a danger that Pinch can be just a bit shallow, I guess. And there are moments that Mel put in there that show the real side of the character, which are nuanced and delicate and raw. So they are there, but as we all know, actors have to put on this front because that's how the world sees them. And and sometimes in Alistair Pinch's case, it drives you to obsession and alcoholism, and then he found himself caught up in this sort of situation where he can't find a way out. And so, yeah, and I think you're right. It was really important to not linger in the dark too long, because it's very, very easy to do that, given the nature of the murder and the nature of Alistair as a character and the nature of what Charlie's past. It's very easy to make a very dramatic version of this film, but then who wants to see that? Because it's like then you're into television land, I think, where it's important to sprinkle the comedy where possible, and to sort of mess around. A lot of the takes we just messed around, like the take where Mel pops up from the magazine where Charlie's looking at the room. It was just like, and also what I love about Mel and Charlie, they'll do anything. Once you have a trust of an actor, they're putty and they'll just try anything. So it was the last take, and I said, it'd just be weird if you popped up from nowhere. And instead of interrogating it and questioning it, saying, yes, but that makes no sense, where would he have come from? He says, yeah, all right, well, let's do it. And then we did it. And then he came up with a line. You always put your boots on the... He just came up with that line. So they're very playful, that, caught these actors in a playful mood. And that's the best place to have an actor, is the more relaxed, the more open and playful they are, then they experiment, and then acting becomes fun.
That's so evident on screen, Tim. But one of the great things, and you talk about smoke and mirrors, it's not just smoke and mirrors in making Atlanta work for LA. You've got the smoke and mirrors of the character duality. Every character here is playing their own game of smoke and mirrors. Every single one. And you mentioned Jacob's performance as Don Q. He plays it so perfectly with an air of mystery, but then there's another side that we don't see until the third act, and then we get this big reveal, and your heart just melts. Similarly with Mel as Alistair, he is this buffoonish character, except when acting with the little girl who plays Gabby, Alistair's daughter. But then we get to the play of Rumpelstiltskin, and you have this great shot of the audience of kindergarten parents, all with their cell phones out, all looking through and filming the play, but for Alistair, who is sitting there, his arms crossed, hands clenched, leaning forward, intently watching his little girl. And it's those little gems that you capture on camera that celebrates the life and the fun that Mel puts into things, that Jacob's bringing, that Rupert is just a hoot and a holler. But it's those little moments that really elevate this film, and if people just watch, these just come naturally, and it is so beautiful to see unfold, Tim.
Oh, thanks. I really appreciate it. It's really lovely to hear, because you hope, that's your intention, is you hope that people respond to these moments. And I'm very, very open with actors. I like them. I like suggestions. I like them trying things. And, usually their instincts are correct. And so it's nice to sort of have that connection with them. And there's a lot of those moments in there. There's a lot of moments in the film where I just will always do a silly take, which will just off script, just to try something, and usually ends up, if everyone's in the right headspace, usually ends up in the film. But Mel was incredible in this film. I mean, I just love seeing the sorrow in his eyes. And there's a scene after where Waldo's just sitting down with Don Q at the end. And usually in a film, that scene will be cut out, because why are we sitting down again? But then it goes down. Then it just goes back to those films of the 70s where, why not have a chat after something crazy that's just happened? Why not just sit down and put your feet up and have a one-to-one with someone?
And that fits with these characters. That fits perfectly with this story and these characters. Everyone is not who they seem to be.
That's right. They become friends. On some level, they're friends. And sometimes your enemy is your friend. And you can't. I find that LA has that sort of potential where, on first impressions, you're not sure. You're not sure. You just don't know what to believe. And I think with, hopefully, a lot of the characters in Last Books, like especially Jamshidi, for instance, like he's sitting there. You just don't know anything about the guy. He gives so little away. And you just don't know why. Just like, and then he pops up again. But I think it's. I'm really pleased that you connected to the characters, because they're just as important. All the supports.
Oh, absolutely.
They have a role to play in Waldo's story. They it's all connected. Everything's connected.
Two things I have to ask you about before Grace unceremoniously terminates our call. I've got to ask you about Peter's scoring. It bounces along. It's great. But hand in hand with the beat and the rhythm of the score that you have is the work of your editors, of Joe Landauer and Nicholas Mansour. Joe's work I fell in love with back, a little indie that he did years ago called Teeth. So I'm familiar, and same thing with Nicholas's television work on Brockmire, which you also directed episodes on, Key and Peele. So the music and the editing and the comedic beats is such a perfect marriage here. So I'm curious what you were looking for musically, and how did that fit in with the challenge of editing for comedy?
Well, the editing process took a long time. Nick started it. I had known Nick before. He's a magician. I think, in my opinion, there's many good editors, but there's a few great. He is definitely a great editor. But he had to jump away, and Joe jumped in, who brought a completely different sensibility. So, on one hand, Nick's great at comedy. Like, he's finding those little nuggets that aren't on the rushes that he's put in, and the timing is brilliant. But Joe is incredible at storytelling, and it was his idea to push the Don Q storyline later into the film, because it used to come a lot earlier. And it was just a brilliant fix that no one had thought about. And it played really well. And, even Howard, the writer, was like, wow, I don't know how he's managed to do that. So all along, you've got Joe going into every single scene and finding always suggesting. I'd walk in and go, what about this? I go, that's amazing. And so we try and look in every scene and make every scene count. Working alongside with Peter Nachel, who he did amazing work on I, Tonya, and I didn't want a jazz soundtrack. I wanted a soundtrack that sort of mapped and tracked Waldo's emotion so that we're present with him. And I wanted it to change, and I wanted it to loosen up and be free, almost experimental. At the end, where he's scrabbling around with his gun, and it goes very, very abstract, and drums kind of all over the place. And that's how Waldo's feeling. So on one hand, it started with very, very sort of beautiful, delicate music at the beginning, and then had this. So there wasn't one specific sort of tune to the film. I wanted a lot of big sort of commercial tracks that weren't recognisable as commercial tracks in there to add to the anarchy of the film. So the end title sequence, Kill of the Night, the title sequence music, and just wanted those big, gritty, authentic, grainy, acoustic bands.
Mm-hmm.
Like Black Keys. In fact, the Black Keys is in there, but too expensive. But just to echo how Waldo is, how down and dirty he is.
Yeah.
So it was all sort of like it was all hung on him, It was whatever he was feeling at the time.
That was the driving force.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, Tim, I know Grace, she's texting that we have to wrap and go. All I can say is thank you so much for directing this film. I love Last Looks. It is so funny, and I hope to see you do more feature film directing. I love your television work, but you really have a knack for putting it all together as a feature film so that we see a story play out in full. I really...
Thank you.
I love it.
You were my agent. That sounds amazing. Thank you.
Oh, Tim.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think it's given me the strength, Last Looks, to really, really delve into the next film, which I'm teeing up. And I'm very excited because Last Looks was a challenge, huge challenge, and hopefully there's something in there. And it's lovely to hear you speak. What you said is why I make it, and you've responded so well. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Tim. And I hope I get to talk to you again in the future.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. Sure. Thank you, Tim, so much.
You're very welcome. Bye, Debbie.
Bye-bye.